Started. Okay. Yes, just FYI, everybody, this is going to be recorded, and then we'll also have this video and accompanying resources to share with you all after. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for coming to today's webinar. Oi, Tito, let's watch out for gout. Let's get ready for the holidays. This is part two. If you weren't able to join us for our first one, we can also post the recording link for that, the first one in the chat, and also we'll share with you later. But this today's webinar will be more focused on discussion and kwentuhan with community members. And yeah, so my name is Clara. I'm part of the Filipino Young Leaders Program, or FilPro. And this webinar is coordinated by Tayo, which is a project of FilPro. And Tayo initially started in 2020 as a COVID-19 help desk, fighting medical misinformation and disinformation, but has grown into its own program, providing mentorship and promoting awareness for a variety of health issues. Now, on behalf of FilPro and Tayo, we have the pleasure of co-hosting this with our very own Dr. Isa Palma and our amazing Tayo director, Lizel Tangal. A special shout out to our partners for their support. So today we will have a special guest, Dr. Solon Ashby, and who will be talking about gout and the Filipino community. And then we'll also hear from Yana Gilbuena Babu, a Filipino chef and writer. But we'll also spend most of today's webinar, as I said earlier, with kwentuhan from community members Mark Calaguas and Joshua Allen Price. So we'll start just by introducing Mark and Josh, or letting Mark and Josh introduce themselves before we get started. So would one of you want to start first?
All right, I'll start. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Lagos. I'm based in Chicago. Coming to you tonight from just outside of Detroit. Um, I I'm an alumnus of PhilPro's signature immersion program, and then I served on the board for a few years. And then I'm also a co-founder of the Tile Project, along with Lizelle and Josh. By day, I'm an attorney, and in all other hours, I'm in various community spaces. So really happy to um, talk about, these very personal but also very commonplace experiences in our community.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Joshua Ong Price. I am based in Jacksonville, Florida. I was also a PhilPro alum and PhilPro president in 2020 and currently still serve on the board of PhilPro. I was also a co-founder of Tayo along with Lizelle and Mark. And my background is working for the federal government and also with nonprofits to help them access federal funds and apply for grants, as well as fundraising and development. And yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight and talk about my love-hate relationship with gout. It's actually more of a hate relationship. I don't think I have much love for it, but it's a difficult relationship. But happy to share my personal experiences and hopefully it will help someone else that's also suffering from gout.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so we can sort of pin on the two of you, and hopefully that will. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We're just gonna launch right into some discussion while we're still waiting on Dr. Salone and Yana to join. But also, I just wanted to offer a brief disclaimer. The purposes of this webinar are purely educational and for the community. It's not intended to be personal medical advice, so just take that into consideration. But first, to get started, I guess I'll just ask each of you to give a little brief, I don't know, summary of your experience with gout, or maybe a particular anecdote that stands out to you just to get us started. So either of you, if you'd like to share, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. I first got gout in 2023 um, in Boracay, of all places. I was on vacation in the Philippines, and we were in Boracay, and I just felt like my ankle was kind of swollen, and I thought maybe I felt like it was a little bit swollen, like my ankle and my big toe on my left foot. I felt like it was a little swollen on the plane ride over, and I thought, well, I'm on this plane for like 15 hours, and like maybe that's it, or maybe I did something funny, like when I'm sitting in the seat, and then I'm walking around on the beach, and it just like kept hurting, and I thought, okay, like did I sprain it? Like did I do something to it? And it was kind of red and swollen. And luckily, my sister, who's a doctor, took a look at it, and she's like, "I think you have gout." And I was like, "No way! Like I'm too young to have gout. Like I don't have gout. Are you crazy?" But my mom had gout, and some of my titos and titas also had gout. So it was, it definitely ran in the family. So I kind of just did my best in Boracay and made the most of it. I limped along behind everyone else. It was so sad, it was laughable actually, but I had a good time. And then we got back to Iloilo, where my family lives, and one of my cousins actually has gout. And he said, "Well, you could, take some of my gout medicine, my colchicine, and see what happens." And I took it for like a day, and like my gout started going away, and that's how we knew it was like for sure gout. And then later, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, cousin, that I took your gout medicine, and he said, "Oh, it's okay. You can get it over the counter here. Like you just go to Mercury Drug and say, 'Hey, I've got gout,' and they just give you a few pills." So yeah, that was my first experience with gout, and I don't know about anybody else, but crazy enough, I just renewed like my prescription for gout, and my colchicine prescription costs more in the U.S. than colchicine costs in the Philippines. Like for me, it's like $30 for like a 90 like a pill of a bottle of 90 pills, but in the Philippines for like that same amount, it's like $10. It's like a third as much. So yeah, I don't know if that's commentary on the American healthcare system or the prevalence of gout in the Philippines or both, but it's definitely so widespread there that you can get it over the counter and it's cheaper. For me anyway, it's cheaper in the Philippines than it is here.
Um, Thanks, Josh, for that. I think there's some common through lines here. One of them being getting a flare up while traveling.
Yeah.
That is very disruptive. And I've been there a couple times. Um, but I guess when did I actually get it? Well, I got my formal diagnosis very poetically um, the week I turned 40. So to me, that's okay, you really are a Tito now. You've hit middle aged and you now have gout. It's almost, what is it? Is it the rite of passage? I don't know. It was totally off my radar because I've never, had any issues with diet. I'm not allergic to any foods. I don't have any conditions. So where I've had to watch what I eat in terms of, other than kind of general kind of healthiness, right? Um, but it this process in hindsight, it's almost like a kind of like a detective story where there were a few incidents before that diagnosis where now I'm thinking it probably was a flare up. So for more context,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a runner. Much more active, years before than recently. I've run marathons and I used to be pretty active, which, eventually did, lead to some injuries over the years, a stress fracture being kind of the one major one. And then after that, I kind of had like bouts of tendonitis as well, which is a separate thing. And so I would say maybe like a year or so before my diagnosis, um, I had a couple bouts of what I thought was tendonitis, where it was just uh, really painful to walk, any type of pressure, once you hit the ground. So I was limping a lot. I remember, going to the office and actually finding my old um, air cast, my boot from when I had my stress fracture. That allowed me to actually be mobile, right? And I just talked it off to, um, improper training, for running. Maybe I was just kind of doing too much too soon and not, pacing myself. So I didn't really think much of it. But during that birthday week, it was so bad that the pain, the inability to walk, and thinking about that, it persisted, right? So it lasted, more than a week. It was getting into the second week. That's when, I started to suspect, okay, maybe I should really get this looked at. So I went to my podiatrist, the my sports, it's a sports medicine specialist, who had treated my stress fracture. It took him maybe, like a minute or so to kind of look at it. And he says, "Oh, wait, I think you have gout." And so it kind of like brought it home to me, and like, oh my God, right? Like, okay, that's okay. What does that mean? And so put me on some painkillers to reduce the inflammation. Um, and then, um, and then after that, I got referred back to my general practitioner, and I was put on uh, allopurinol, which is, I think, probably the most common medication, to treat gout. So I've been taking it ever since, just once daily. And then, of course, I was counseled, right, about kind of all the things I needed to kind of modify my diet, hydrate more, things like that, which foods to avoid, and substitutions and things like that. Um, I did get more relapses because the following year, no, 2 years after that, um, and this was kind of just on me. I was up for my follow-up and my prescription refill, and I was just really busy at the time. I think I was doing some more traveling, and I just kind of let it by the wayside, and I kind of forgot about it. And so it was about maybe like a month or two that I was not kind of maintaining with my meds. And then boom, right? It kind of hit me while I think it was Labor Day weekend of that year. And it just stretched on for a couple more weeks. And I actually had to cancel some other travel because of that, because I couldn't walk. It was that bad. And so definitely learned my lesson. And happy to say that, right now it's been about 2 years since I've had more than 2 years since I've had a flare up. And at least for the last four checkups I've had, my uric acid levels are normal. And yeah, and I do talk it up to, there were some dietary, modifications, but could very well be a case where medication kind of maybe I need that extra boost as well to kind of maintain.
Yeah, Mark, I'm seeing a lot of similarities too. Now that you bring it up, maybe like a year or 18 months before I was formally diagnosed with gout after being Baraki, like I had an issue with one of my ankles as well, and I really thought it was just a severe sprain. But now, because I used to do like taekwondo and martial arts, so like you, Mark, very active, and was prone to getting ankle and foot injuries and things like that. So I didn't think much of it. But now, in hindsight, like it was a really bad quote sprain, and I remember like soaking it in the tub, and like I was like limping to the bathroom, and in hindsight it felt just like gout, like now that I know what gout feels like. um and I see there's a question. Arlene said, what are the causes of gout? So I can only speak to me. I know it's kind of different for other people, but I know shellfish is something people bring up a lot. I'm allergic to shellfish, so I don't eat shellfish, and I still have gout. But for me, so this is really funny, but after the last gout webinar, like 2 weeks later, I had a gout flare up. And I was like, did I bring this on myself somehow? And I was supposed to go to a Bayanihan Club Christmas party with one of my friends and fellow PhilPro alum, Agnes Lopez. And like we were going to go together. And I literally had to cancel the day of. I was like, Agnes, I was like, I literally cannot walk. Like I'm wearing an ankle brace. Like and same as you, Mark, like I had let my colchicine prescription lapse. And like I literally had to like fill it and then head up to the pharmacy. I'm like limping to get in. I was like, I need my colchicine, it's pitiful. And my uric acid must have been high. And so I was taking the colchicine and then I got like sick to my stomach because it's kind of like flushing the colchicine out of your body. I mean, the colchicine's flushing the uric acid out of your body. So I got sick to my stomach too. And it was just like, I was like miserable for the next few days. But that I really, to answer your question, Arlene, I didn't really know what was like triggering gout for me because the traditional like gout triggering foods didn't seem like that was affecting me like that. But after this last incident, I think what's causing it is beans for me, beans, because what happened was I had Mexican food and I had refried beans. And then I just so happened to have another like other Mexican food, like unrelated to that Mexican food a few days later, and I had black beans. And then I had some chili, and it also had beans. So I ate the beans like just randomly, like 3 times in the week, and I really think that's what triggered my gout. I really think it was the beans, and I've done a little bit of research on it, and like that is something that is possible for some people. And then one thing I want to add to Mark's point about the allopurinol. So my mom used to have severe gout as well, and she was started on allopurinol, and she was like horribly allergic to allopurinol because apparently some Filipinos are like deathly allergic to allopurinol, and she had something called Steven Johnson syndrome, where basically like she passed out and her skin was like falling off, like it was horrible, like her skin was literally like falling off her body, like turning black and falling off, and it was like a life or death situation because of her allergy to allopurinol. So when I got diagnosed with gout and the doctor's like, do you want allopurinol? I was like, no, I don't, I don't want allopurinol because we share the same genetics and I didn't want to risk it with a family history that I might also be allergic to allopurinol. So if you do have gout, like make sure you ask your doctor and check because you could potentially be allergic to allopurinol.
Yeah, and to also kind of follow up with Arlene's question, I know we have an actual doctor, who's coming down the line to um, provide kind of the medical explanation, but sort of, I can just pass on what my own doctors, have told me and kind of, the additional research, right, that I was directed to, where basically, gout is a condition where when you have elevated levels of uric acid in your blood and your body, for whatever reason, there's several, isn't able to kind of flush it out efficiently or fast enough. And so the excess of that acid then, leads to like actual crystal deposits that will settle into, I believe they say it's like the lower temperature parts of your body, and that usually be your joints. And for most people, that would be the joints in your toes. That's like the really common one. So I was a textbook case of it. One telltale sign is, is that your foot is just, it gets swollen, it gets red, gets tender. Um, but it is so incredibly sensitive to any kind of pressure, even sort of the top sheet, on your bed. So people who are suffering from gout, you'll oftentimes, they'll have to sleep comfortably, kind of leave their foot hanging outside of the covers so that it's just out in the air and there's nothing touching it. And that certainly was the case for me during kind of my really bad flare-ups. As
Mm-hmm.
Josh mentioned, I mean, beans are, historically been attributed to, raising uric acid levels. Um, red meat, pork, shellfish, um, certain other like oily fishes like kind of mackerel, anchovies, and sardines. Um, and when I kind of got that little informational packet, I it was kind of frustrating, right? Because there are healthy foods that are on that list too. And
Hmm.
I mean, I eat everything, right? So I eat, unhealthy things and healthy things. Like I eat it all, right? So, and for me, it was just kind of frustrating to see that there's a bunch of things that I should be eating, which apparently, if I follow that guidance, I should moderate on. And so, I eat a lot of like sardines, for example, right? It's a really good, affordable protein source. If you're working out, I think that's a really good, kind of great way to get your protein. And it's really good for like your cholesterol and everything. But I think for a lot of people, that is a restricted food, unfortunately. And I know. So Josh, it sounds like you were able to identify certain trigger
Yeah.
foods.
Yeah. And Mark,
For
same with
me,
beans. I mean, beans are
yeah,
a healthy, that's a healthy protein alternative, right? If you don't want to eat meat. So it's crazy because people say, beans are healthy, they're good for your heart and protein, but then for some people, it can trigger the uric acid.
yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the other kind of frustrating thing about it, right, was I kind of researched on my own, right, kind of for tips, right, like what are kind of good kind of diet guidance or what has worked for people, and you know um, as with like a lot of kind of health issues, you start to see kind of divergent or possibly contradictory, kind of guidance, right? Depending on the source. So obviously, we're at Tayo, we're very much about kind of being very. We try to promote being discerning about your the sources of health information. Um, but I did read somewhere that there's some experts who are kind of relaxing their stance on like beans, that they say like, okay, well, obviously if you know that it does affect you, certainly cut it out, but the health benefits of like the fiber and the protein, might be worth it, especially if it's not triggering you. But and that it's really animal proteins that you should kind of really be concerned with, which yeah, and if that is in fact accurate, it does check out, right? But so far for me, beans have not been an issue. And I've not done like a specific like, elimination diet. I just kind of did the general guidance of, let's say, I mean, that first year or two, I cut down my beef consumption like drastically, like because I was just knowing how much it hurt to have a flare up. Like I think I had like one hamburger, like for a whole year, after I got my diagnosis. Pork, I definitely, immediately kind of cut a lot of that out. And then as the medication, kind of set in, once, I kind of, was hydrating more regularly, exercising back in a good place, and that I had several visits where it was confirmed that my uric acid levels were at a pretty normal rate. I started, kind of living being, less you know, a little more permissive, right? And so like right now, if I'm out, at a social event, I will probably um, be a little more indulgent, because that's kind of special occasions, right? Once a week, maybe twice. But we're talking about like every day, your lunch, during the work day. I definitely try to stick to poultry, so a lot of chicken, turkey sometimes, but then also I've been able to, do at least one or two meatless days a week. So eggs, mushrooms, tofu. Um, yeah, I'm kind of lucky that I don't have any other kind of restrictions, and I'm a very adventurous eater. So I'm able to kind of still enjoy like a wide range of flavors, without kind of feeling that I'm really kind of denying myself something.
Yeah. Hey, Mark. So, I don't want. I know that like meat, like beef, red meat, and pork. I mean, definitely those are triggers for gout. But like, for me, it doesn't bother me like at all. Like I could eat all the beef, all the pork. Like it literally doesn't bother me. But I can't have beans. Another thing I've identified is like too much sugar, like sugary drinks. And I have read too that and like worked with my doctor and dietitian that sugary drinks can be a trigger, or like too much like beer or alcohol, that a sugary cocktail or something like that. So to that effect, I have stopped drinking all sodas, and I only drink water now. Like I literally only drink water, and I've noticed that my incidence of flare-ups are not as frequent. So unlike allopurinol, colchicine is not recommended to take every day. You kind of just have to take it when you have a flare-up, like when you feel one coming on, because if you take it every day, it can I was told it can damage my doctor could damage your kidneys, and it could also lead to some ulcers and things like that. So it's not I have no other option. I can't take allopurinol, so I really have to kind of watch for my flare-ups, and then treat them as necessary when they become acute. So in a way to kind of lessen my flare-ups, I've been drinking way more water. Don't drink any sodas. Avoid sugary drinks. Avoid beans. Um, and then I've also been taking, this is more like on the holistic side, but apple cider vinegar. I've read some things that it can help, and kind of heard from some of the community titos and titas that it helps them as well. So I've been taking apple cider vinegar. I can't really stomach it in its liquid form. It's just way too sour for me. But there is a capsule version that you can take, so I take those daily, and I found that that is also kind of helping me with the incidence of gout.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna briefly introduce Yana. We have, I believe, has joined. Um, if she is able to introduce herself, I would love to get her involved in this conversation as well. But also, thank you to everybody who's been asking questions in the chat. Um, I shared a document that has some answers to those general questions, but we can also do a little bit more Q&A towards the end once, so we can have a little more direct involvement in the discussion. So continue to ask those if they come up. But Yana, are you able to unmute? If not, no worries, we can keep moving. Um, okay, why don't we keep going with the conversation? Josh and Mark, have you been seeing some of the questions in the group chat or in the chat?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely want to touch on alcohol. Well, drinks. Okay, so Josh was talking about drinks, and yeah. Another kind of trigger I've read about is fructose. So,
Mhm.
so sugar does play some role in it, but again, kind of depends on your kind of individual. I don't think sugar is a factor kind of for my gout, but I'm also kind of fortunate in that I really don't have a sweet tooth. So that's not like a big temptation for me. I'll maybe like crave dessert maybe like once a month, you know. And so obviously that's also good for like diabetes and all these other things. But for me, it's, kind of fatty, greasy, fried foods. That's kind of my weakness. So that's where it'll come to bite me. But also alcohol, yeah, for sure. So I mentioned that you may see kind of different emphases on things to avoid, but the one that I think there is a general consensus on is alcohol and specifically beer, right? So so people might differ on like beans or certain fish or whatever, but the top three that you always see that you should avoid: beer, pork, and red meat. Um, and so I took that to heart. So I definitely, well, I definitely cut I stopped drinking beer. Definitely, in those first 2 years, I was kind of scared straight. But the other context too, before my diagnosis was, this was the height of the pandemic, right? Where we were still kind of sheltering in place. We're at home. If you want to flash back to that era, this was the time when, people were having virtual happy hours, and I'm in a lot of groups, a lot of professional organizations, a lot of different friend circles all across the country. So that was a big thing for us to, you know, um, kind of pass the time and connect with each other. And for me, that also involved, just having a drink in my hand. And I know a lot of people they probably overconsumed like during this period. Certainly for me, um, because there's not much to do, right? So that kind of fills the void. And I was consuming just a lot more, more often. I was, downing like bottles of whiskey, pretty rapidly. Um, and I suspect now that maybe kind of like put me over the edge, right? So, once I got that diagnosis and was warned, um, I stopped drinking at home. Um, and that was a lot easier during that time because it was another year or so, I think, before people really started opening up and going out again. So, naturally, I made myself the promise, because I'm not a believer sort of in just kind of going cold turkey. I know like willpower, you know, um, can be difficult to navigate. So I just said, you know what, just don't drink at home, right? And maybe if you find yourself out, yeah, you can, indulge, right? And so that kind of worked for me. And that's still kind of my consumption to this day. I got a full liquor cabinet. I don't think I've opened it in over a year. But I do still do kind of enjoy when I'm out socially. But coupled with that, there are kind of measures you can take too as well, right? So definitely hydration is huge. Not just because you're kind of drinking alcohol, but like that also will help kind of clear out the uric acid in your system quicker. And then what else? Oh, uh, tart cherry juice is something that a lot of people with gout find is helpful for them. In term, so they'll take it sort of as a preventative or prophylactic, right? Like if they know that, they might be consuming something they shouldn't, just as kind of as an insurance policy, right? They will have tart cherry juice on hand. I haven't actually kind of gone into the science of it, but I've heard enough, and I've actually now talked to a lot of fellow kind of gout sufferers that they found it works for them. And so when I go out for my professional conferences, one of the things I'll try to do is, once I check into the hotel, is go to the nearest grocery store and find a big jug of tart cherry juice and just have it on hand in the hotel in case I get a little out of control, during a dinner or happy hour or whatever. And again, so far, what I've been doing kind of works for me personally, just because, I've not had a flare up in quite some time. So, um, yeah, that's another, there's a bunch of things you can kind of um, both, so it's both about kind of avoiding certain things, but sometimes also if you supplement your diet kind of with certain
Mhm.
food and drink, that can help as well.
Yeah, Mark, to your point, I think I've heard the cherry juice thing too. I haven't personally tried it, but from other gout sufferers I've spoken to, it seems like the apple cider vinegar thing that I mentioned, and like maybe the cherry juice is kind of like the same effect. Like they're both kind of tart. I don't know what the science is behind it either, but it seems like it's kind of the same type of a supplement. And then to your point about the alcohol and the sugary drinks. Like I've noticed that if I do drink alcohol and it's something like a cocktail, whether it's mixed with a sugary drink as well, that seems to really kind of set it off for me. But also, as far as alcohol, you mentioned alcohol. I would almost want to use that as a metaphor or analogy as well, because you know how for those who are alcohol drinkers, like vodka may work great for one person, and like but tequila is not doesn't work for them, and like someone else loves gin, and someone else loves rum or like whiskey, and you kind of have to figure out like what works for you and gives you that good buzz or feeling, and what doesn't work for you, and put you over the edge or makes your stomach hurt or whatever. And I kind of feel like with gout, it's the same thing. Like it's almost like a little bit of trial and error of like what foods set it off, which ones don't, and it could be different for different people. So and that's not very helpful. But it's almost like you need to have a gout journal to figure out what you track what's causing it and what's not causing it. But I see
Well,
Anna can talk now, so I wanted to give her some time.
yes. Hey, Yana.
I am so sorry. I thought it was tomorrow. Ha ha ha. Just kidding. Um, hi everybody. I'm Yana Gilbuena Babu. I am a chef, but transitioning over to being a death doula. And I have gout. So I'm part of the gout, the gout club. Um, I know you're talking about like what to eat, what to avoid. And my gout journey for me was I had like an inflamed big toe, and I was very confused because I was like, I don't know what this is. I didn't drop anything on it. And when I went to my primary care doctor, she was like, I'm sorry, you have gout. I'm like, what? Um, so she did recommend, you know, like medication, but I preferred to go the lifestyle change route, kind of like what Josh was saying and what Mark was saying, like, avoiding alcohol, sweet, sugary drinks. But also for me, it was like figuring out what my triggers were. So like purines, I don't know if anyone has talked about purines in food, but for example, turkey is very high in purines. Mushrooms are also very high in purines. Any like broccoli, like that cauliflower, that family, the brassica family is also high in purines. So I love all those things. And unfortunately, I have to just make sure that if let's say, I have mushrooms and broccoli like this week, I will choose to avoid them next week, kind of like just rotate what I eat and kind of diversify my diet. Um, and also not over, you know, over consuming something. I tend to like, you know, I like to eat. So sometimes I just like be like, oh yeah, mushroom this, mushroom that, and then I forget that it's, one of the triggers that it accumulates in your body, the purines accumulate in your body. Um, and with that said, I'm like, okay, I've had enough. Let's give the mushrooms a rest and move on to a different, you know, um bracket in terms of like what I can eat and what I can't. My only complication is I'm also like gluten intolerant. So there's a lot of other things that I can't eat. So that was something that I have to balance between gout and my gluten intolerance.
Thank you so much for sharing, Yana. I'm so glad you could join us. And I'd also like to introduce Dr. Solon, who joined us for our first Gout webinar. So Dr. Solon, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well. Hold on, I think you might still be muted. Um, Hold on. There.
There, better.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm Agnes Salon. Sorry I'm late. Um, I am a rheumatologist. I graduated from UPPGH in '87, moved to the US, did my fellowship in rheumatology, and I take care of a lot of gout. Um, I know it's very common in Filipinos, but I also live in Louisiana where we have a very gout-rich diet. So, not just alcohol and sugary foods, but we have a lot of boudin, which is kind of like longanisa, but it's all inside meats. They eat a lot of wild game, and so we have a lot of people who have attacks. But I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but the one who just spoke before me, I think you've got it figured out really well because a lot of times too, if I may intercede, gout is happens, or gout attacks happen when there's an imbalance of your uric acid levels in your blood. And if it's so high, then that's when it can get diffused into your joints, and that's when you have the gout attack. So you're not necessarily not be able to eat broccoli or mushrooms or whatever, eating it in moderation to the point of not really increasing your urate or uric acid levels in your blood will save you from an attack. So I totally agree with you because people will come up and say, does that mean I can never eat peanuts or red beans and rice? Because that's another delicacy here in Louisiana. And I'm like, no, you can, but just do it in moderation, like everything else.
Thank you, Dr. Salon. And now that we have everybody here, I'd also like to ask a question to the group. Um, we've talked a lot about foods and specific trigger foods. And Josh was talking a little bit about it earlier, like this difference between maybe prevalence or also like availability of resources in the Philippines versus here. But I'm also just curious what everybody's experiences are in terms of how gout has related to their Filipino identity.
Okay, well, it's very interesting. So first of all, I am wearing this hat. It says Got Gout. It's a play off of the old 90s, milk PSAs, the old Got Milk. And I bought this at a Filipino festival in California. Actually, it was that's I think that's a marker, right, of kind of the how this health condition has kind of taken on some cultural dimensions as well. And literally this was in Delano, California. So this very historic
Oh my
place
God.
in our community. Yeah. It was their annual Filipino festival during October, during History Month. And so
Of
of
course.
course, well, this is okay. Imagine this, right? Actually, this kind of gives you kind of the whole kind of overview, right? So one, you got all the food vendors, right, that are serving all the rich, delicious food, the fiesta foods, right? So you've got your lechon, you've got like all your, barbecue on a
Yes.
stick, right? You've got all your fried foods. Okay, great. Um, and then now you also have one of our friends was actually there working with Kaiser Permanente, the hospital system, because they were doing health screenings there because they knew this is their target audience. And so, as you kind of, scarf down your lechon, you can go get your cholesterol checked. So, I mean, maybe to put things kind of in perspective, right? That, okay, we're kind of enjoying here. It's a special occasion. It's our fiesta, whatever. But, when the weekend is over, you might want to think about, kind of, your general lifestyle choices. And then you had all the other kind of the clothing and apparel vendors. So now you've got this where now it's a punchline. Maybe just because of the particular prevalence of gout in our community. And now if you go online, you see kind of Filipino starting in the diaspora, right? Phil Ams and Filipino Canadian gout influencers. So people who make kind of humorous content related to gout. And then a few ones who actually also um, kind of um, kind of take you on their journey, right? So there's one influencer out in the Bay Area. I believe he goes by Gout Clout. Um, and he will kind of document when he goes out to eat and the choice, he'll look at the menu and kind of determine what are kind of the gout friendly foods he can eat there. So for people out there in that part of the country, you might kind of that might be useful, right? Picking up some, learning about some places where you might not need to fret too much about kind of what's on the menu. Um, but yeah, got now it's I'm even this webinar itself, Hoy Tito, I mean, We're kind of having a little bit of fun with it, but as Yana can attest to, it's not just the Titos, right? It's our Titas as well. But yeah, I think it's very Filipino to see something that is like very painful, right? That causes a lot of suffering, and be able to bring some joy with humor. But as a way of kind of processing kind of those journeys.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. I think it's also like a rite of passage. So my family in the Philippines, like I'm like, I have gout. They're like, oh, Filipino talaga. Like you really are Filipino. All your cousins have gout too. So yeah, if anything, it makes me really feel very Filipino. We are one in Kapwa with our suffering.
A lot of times, so I think for most Filipinos, food is our love language. We force food on guests. Nobody goes home from a Filipino party empty-handed. And so that just kind of goes along with the territory. So that's why you share stories of high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and gout. Because we, one of my friends showed me, you know how like when during marathons or runs, there's drink stations every 5 miles. Well, she showed me a picture of a station that was serving lechon in like mile 10 in a marathon. So I thought that was interesting.
Well,
Um,
that's a really great pick, Dr. Solon. And also, Josh and Yana. I mean, I know one thing we wanted to achieve with this part of the series it is we are in the holidays, right? And so we are knee deep in, your office parties, your organizations, and then of course the actual, Christmas holiday next week and the New Year's. Can we maybe just talk about like as Filipinos, as Filipino Americans, with Gout, kind of, how to approach the holiday table, either as somebody who is preparing food for your loved ones, but also maybe as a guest, what does that look like to y'all, and what are some kind of considerations you take, yeah, when you show up to these parties.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to chime in, right? This is all our holiday experiences, and how do we you know still, have fun,
Yeah.
take pleasure, and kind of, and not feel like we are denying ourselves some part of our culture.
Yeah, so because I'm a rheumatologist, I see a lot of overweight patients, and we talk about how they have to control their weight, and so I recommend specific diets, and they'll go, what happens if I have to go to a party? Well, then you eat ahead. You don't go to a party hungry, and then you're gonna pre-plan. So you're not, if you want to have a drink, have one drink, and don't do beer. Maybe do like gin and tonic or like tequila water or something, and then just stick with one. And there are ways around it. And I think being aware, and it's fortunately, gout isn't like an allergic reaction where if you eat a piece of shrimp and you're allergic to shrimp, you're gonna have an attack. It's like what we had said before, it's moderation. So you eat one piece of this and one piece of that. But I think the one key thing is going to a party not starving, just so you're not, tempted, and being aware of what your triggers are is also so there's no excuse not to have fun just because you got gout.
mhm.
I think for me, I totally agree with Dr. Agnes. Just because like if you keep depriving yourself of something, like I feel like you have this urge to be like, now I'm gonna like let loose and do everything, but I feel like, hey, I know it's like hard to like to say this, but like make better choices. And it's okay, to like indulge one night maybe, and then like the next day then don't have another piece of lechon, like it's fine. You ate lechon today, then don't eat lechon again tomorrow.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's hard, especially with family, the holidays, like food is so abundant, and that is like kind of key to like Filipino gatherings. Like we love like the display of abundance. We love to have like so much food, and it's kind of like a marker of like if it was a good Filipino party, you take baon home.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like, how do we then make sure that A, we're not offending our hosts, but also like making sure that, hey, I'm also looking out for my health. So it's like, I think it's good to be transparent. Like I've started telling people at like parties that I'm like, hey, I'm pre-diabetic, I have gout, I'm also gluten intolerant. Like I feel like speaking our, I would say like our illnesses or whatever, and just sharing that with family, it's a little bit there, they can be a little bit more understanding versus like, oh yeah, I'm avoiding this and not kind of giving a reason. So I think transparency is key, and also moderation is key.
Whenever
I agree
someone
with
says,
Yana.
what well, I'm sorry, but whenever
Oh, go
someone
ahead,
says, I
doctor.
get so tempted, I tell them, remember the last painful attack you've had. That should make you lose your appetite. Remember when you couldn't
Yes.
put a sock on? Remember when you had to walk with crutches? That should make you lose your appetite.
Remember when you had to hop on one foot to the
There you
bathroom?
go. There you
But
go.
no, I agree with Yana. Like, so at first I would say, I'm just gonna double up on colchicine and just like push through. Like, I'm just gonna take two today and just push through. But no, I share, like you said, Yana. I'll just say, oh, Tita, I'm sorry, I can't have any more lechon. Okay, my gout ako, and they just laugh and they say, oh, okay. So just yeah, just be transparent about it, laugh it off. They'll understand. I mean, they probably have it too.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed the last couple of years is like I have to be like I'm not taking bot one, right? And I have to let the people know, right? Like um it's great, the party, but like if I were to take this bot one home, it would be like repeating this party like two or three more times this week, and that doesn't work for me, right? I like, the next day I need to go back to kind of my normal, anti-inflammatory diet. Um it can get a little bit harder, right? Like during the holidays where, like Ziana said, there's so much abundance. It's like sayang, right? You don't want to kind of waste it. So you gotta be like, hey, maybe this other person, they have like a bigger family, maybe the kids, like, oh, why don't they, take this food home? And I'm fine. Like I already enjoyed tonight. So that's I think one of the one of the more noticeable changes how I've kind of um, been navigating kind of like family gatherings is, really kind of reducing the botwan or in particular certain types of botwan, when it's time to go. Also, Jan, I'm also curious, on the chef side, do you want to kind of maybe share with us sort of like when you want to make a Filipino food, some sort, different recipes, like kind of do you have any hacks or substitutions that you do, to
Ooh.
preserve kind of the integrity, the flavor, but obviously avoiding kind of some the trigger ingredients.
I mean, it's hard because we've got like what, bagoong fish sauce, and salt. Like I hate to say it, but we love our salt. Um, I've used, for example, at least in my household, like kelp granules, so it's like not that salty, but it still gives that salty thing. Um, and I don't know, replacing let's say red meat with like fake red meat, like like Beyond Burger or Beyond whatever, like any other like not real meat alternative. But I also want to say like put that in moderation because we don't know the effects of pea protein right now in our bodies. So that's something like I was also flagging. But I would say like I don't know, like it's really about moderation for me. Yes, there's gout alternatives. Like you can not use fish sauce. You can use like coconut aminos, for example. That's also one thing. Or like Bragg's is also another one. So if you don't want to do coconut aminos, you can do Bragg's. Um, there's also like low sodium soy sauce alternatives out there now that we can use. I know it's not going to be the same with our adobos, but it's one thing to like change and maybe, adapt to our lifestyle because unfortunately, these are genetics, like we kind of inherited this. And I like to joke that not only did we inherit intergenerational trauma, we also inherited intergenerational diseases that were kind of thrown upon us by like, I know, colonizers that forced us to not eat what is supposed to be meant for our bodies. Like for example, like we are not designed to eat all these like preserved cheeses and meats and whatever. Like our diet, we're island people, like I was sharing yesterday, like even rice was not a staple in our pre-colonial diet. Like we used to eat a lot of like starches that would like break down slower in our bodies and make us feel fuller. And rice was actually preserved for like ceremonies and like only special occasions. So and the same with like the meats, like the fiesta foods that Mark brought up earlier today. And like our usual diet is vegetables and fish, or even chicken. So, I mean, if we just try to eat what was, designed for our bodies, I think we can at least mitigate like, the accumulation of the uric acid in our bodies and try to avoid the diseases that we inherited.
Yeah, thank you so much all for sharing. I just really want to quickly open up to any other questions from the audience before we maybe wrap up here. Is there anything that hasn't been asked? And feel free to raise your hand or just type in the chat.
I had a question for Dr. Agnes. Dr. Agnes, I had, after our last gout webinar, I actually had a horrible gout attack 2 weeks later. And I hadn't had a gout attack in over a year. And I think it was, is she still on?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
there
here.
she
I'm
is.
here. Sorry.
And I hadn't had a gout attack in over a year, and I was trying to figure it out. And I think it was beans because I ate beans like 3 times in a week, like in 3 different occasions. I was thinking like, what did I eat? And it was all beans. It was like refried beans, black beans, and then chili with beans. So I had asked earlier before you got on, are beans rich in
Yes,
purines?
yes, yes. Most
Okay.
legumes are peanuts. It's a
Oh, oh
legume. So
no, peanuts.
Yes.
I eat so many
Yes.
peanuts. Oh
yes,
no.
most legumes are. Sorry.
Peanuts are not nuts, by the way. I just want to
Yeah,
share that if people
yeah.
don't know.
I saw someone make a comment about just double the colchicine. I kind of want to point that out. I mean,
Oh,
doubling the
that was me.
colchicine.
I was being facetious, but please, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Well, no, just because although allopurinol, colchicine, all these medications do help, but they've got toxicities too. So it used to be before when I was in training, which was like in the 1990s, the regimen for an acute gout attack was you gave a patient colchicine every hour until they have diarrhea or they throw up because that means they had gotten too much colchicine, but that was the whole point, was to cool down the inflammatory process ASAP. Well, we were putting patients into renal failure because of that dosing. So, so, so I know you're being facetious, but just kind of putting it out there, that doubling your medication isn't necessarily going to be allowing you to eat more lechon or to eat more peanuts because then you might be doing more harm than good to your kidneys by sparing your big toe.
Yeah, Dr. Agnes, too, I also kind of heard that colchicine can have a side effect of like acid reflux and ulcers. Is that true as well?
Yes, yes. But the renal
Like
failure is
long-term
the
use?
scariest part of it, yeah. Because I see a lot of patients who are on like 300 milligrams of allopurinol and zero point 0.6 milligrams of colchicine twice a day, and then their kidneys aren't working very well, and so you a lot of times if you catch it early on, then the damage is reversible. But hopefully it is, But no one wants to be on dialysis just because they took too much colchicine.
Thank you for the question and the answer. I think if that's all the questions that we have, again, I just want to thank all the our guest speakers today, and also everyone who came to watch and ask questions. This is really so valuable because it's like a group and like an affinity space. So yeah, we're so grateful for everyone's participation. And I'm gonna really quickly hand it off to Lizelle who's gonna just make some announcements on behalf of Tayo.
Yeah, thanks, Clara. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We really enjoy and think it's really valuable to do these webinars. So I think this will be our last one for the year. So stay tuned for more of these different tackling different issues that affect our community. I also just want to put in the chat a feedback form. If you are able to fill this out, we always appreciate your feedback, how we can improve these, any topics you want to see in the future. And yeah, and then we'll circle back and email the video of this recording as well as additional resources as well. And then I think that's it. I don't know if any of the panelists want to say any parting words.
Happy holidays.
I'm so grateful. This is Claire's my daughter, and I'm just so grateful for our family that showed up today for her, and so grateful, so happy. We have folks from Arizona, California, Virginia, that are on this call for Clara today.
Oh, that's awesome.
You
Yeah,
learned a lot.
maligayang
You learned
Pasko,
a lot.
everybody.
And Harrisburg, and Harrisburg. Yeah. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy holidays. Maligayang Pasko, everybody. And manigong bagong taon. All right. Enjoy in moderation.
In moderation.
In moderation, we
Hydrate.
trust.
Hydrate.
Bye, you all.